What was is, but what's a man to do when his back's against the wall? Will there ever be an end to this madness? When life hands you life, live.
I found myself in deep water. I spoke with friends and coworkers who all felt I should file a grievance and/or complaint. At this point, I became disengaged and anxious at work. I was having a bad feeling about things and saw no light at the end of the tunnel. I was isolated and detailed to Ambulance 3 more than average. I felt the negative energy when I walked into certain firehouses. The offensive comments and jokes about my bad boy time created a hostile environment. It was a challenge for me to keep focused. I've been called incompetent and made to look as a liability. These series of incidents has not only left me mentally but also economically injured. My reputation has been damaged as well. I have been tormented to the point where I lost all hope in being a firefighter. The spreading of malicious gossip and rumors made the work environment uncomfortable. On January 1st, 2014, I woke up feeling sick to my stomach and crying. I had an ill feeling about going to work. I know if I requested EAL, my battalion fire chief would deny it. I know if I went to the PFC on sick call, I would risk being put on extended sick leave and forced back into duty. I weighed my options and decided it was best to call off work. I called at a respectable time and informed the officer that I would not be reporting for duty. He asked me to take off sick leave or EAL, but I told him, like I know, the chief is going to grant me leave. The officer expressed that I had to play the game. I told him it's not a game, it's about my sanity and my livelihood. He recommended the Employee Assistance Program. I expressed that the EAP couldn't make the fire department give me a decision or get the chief to stop attacking me. The anxious feeling was still with me the following tour, so I called off again. I was ordered by Battalion Fire Chief not to report back to duty until I completed a fitness for duty examination at the Police and Fire Clinic. I was instructed to contact the Police and Fire Clinic for further instruction. I spoke with the chief and he stated he never heard of a chief requesting a fitness for duty exam. He then said he would get back with me. I immediately called Engine 7 and spoke with the officer in charge. I informed him that I spoke with the chief at the Police and Fire Clinic. I instructed the officer to make a journal entry stating I spoke with the chief and he said he would get back with me about a fitness for duty examination. The weekend ended and I had not heard back from the chief. I spoke with him on Wednesday of that prior week, so on Tuesday morning I decided to contact the chief again. I was told again he had to get more information and he would get back with me. I contacted Engine 7 and spoke with the officer and instructed him to make a second journal entry stating the chief would get back with me. After the second tour of AWOL, special reports were sent to the chain of command. I never received a phone call from the Police and Fire Clinic, so I made no further contact with the fire department. By the 10th tour of AWOL, I was officially charged with abandonment of duty. On February 14, 2014, I received a phone call from the officer of the fire chief and the fire chief himself. He asked me why I had been AWOL. I told him I was going through a lot and I didn't want to bring it to work. I expressed I made the wrong decisions in the past and they were coming back to haunt me. We set up a meeting, we were able to meet in person. Upon reviewing my file, he immediately saw a pattern and said, "Oh, they messing with you." I was shocked before I could say anything. He knew what was happening. He asked me what would I like to happen. I asked what could happen. He looked at me and said, "I can't make this disappear. It'll be all over the news." The best he could offer me was a last chance agreement. A last chance agreement meant that if I wouldn't get in trouble for 3 years, I wouldn't have to deal with the AWOL charges or other pending charges. I said, "You see what's happening, and if I fought a sneeze wrong, I'm gonna be put on charges." I decided against the last chance agreement and asked the chief could he get my decision for my other trial board cases. I wanted to get what was coming to me over with. From that point on, I knew I had to activate my exit strategy. At the conclusion of my suspension, I called and spoke with the chief about my duty status. I wanted to know his instructions for my next tour of duty. He laughed and said, "You're not just gonna walk back in here and get a check." I told him it's not about a check, it's about your instructions. I asked him again, "What are your orders for the day?" He told me I was not to report to duty until I had a fitness for duty exam. I then informed him that the chief at the Police and Fire Clinic said he never heard of a chief requesting a fitness for duty exam. I then asked him, "What is my status going to be for the day?" He replied, "AWOL." I asked him, "How can I be charged with AWOL when I'm ready to report for duty?" I then said, "Okay, I'll take the AWOL charge," and we ended the conversation. 2 hours later, I received a phone call from Engine 7 officers stating that I had been placed on administrative leave. I remained on administrative leave for 2 tours and received my second suspension of the year. I received a 180-hour suspension from my February 2013 trial board. I served that suspension from April until May 4th of 2014. On May 1st, 2014, the tour before the completion of my suspension, I contacted the battalion fire chief and asked him what was his instruction for my next tour of duty. I was instructed once again to schedule a fitness for duty examination. On the morning of May 4th, 2014, I received a phone call from Engine 7's officer. He informed me I was scheduled to work at 1,900 hours per telestaff. I immediately called the battalion fire chief and asked him what his orders were. He looked on telestaff and saw that I was scheduled to work and told me he would call me back. Minutes later, he called back and said the deputy fire chief overthrew his orders for a PFC evaluation. I informed the chief I was unprepared for duty and would not be able to make it to work at 1,900 hours because of the last-minute notification. He said I must come to work tonight or I'll be placed on AWOL. I expressed to the chief, I know you're trying to hurt me. I just did a 240 and 180-hour suspension and you would see me do more? I then told him I would see him at the trial board. I called and informed the officer to make a journal entry stating I was denied EAL and I would not be reporting to duty tonight. I assumed duty the following tour. I stayed in full duty status until June 6 when I was placed on administrative leave for being arrested. The matter was resolved and I went back to full duty July 4th. I was at work until July 24th when I received notification from my September 11th, 2012 trial board. The final decision was a 436-hour suspension. I also received notification of yet another trial board. I was charged with AWOL on May 4th, 2014 at 1,900 hours and the conviction of a felony. I was never charged with a felony, but charges were exaggerated. This was usual with this chief. The day I signed for my suspension and notification of charges, I asked the chief did he think a 436-hour suspension was fair. He said no. I also learned he was being transferred to Battalion 5. On June 26, 2014, my abandonment of post-trial board was held. I pled not guilty and gave my reasoning. I expressed that I felt sick to my stomach on the morning of January 1st, 2014. I provided evidence that after my second tour of duty, my chief ordered me for a fitness to duty examination. I presented email evidence that I was ordered to the police and fire clinic by my chief. While on the witness stand, the battalion fire chief lied on the record saying he did not order firefighter adjusting scales to the police and fire clinic for a fitness to duty examination. When evidence was presented that he did order firefighter scales to the PFC, he admitted he indeed ordered firefighter scales to the PFC. Engine 7's officer testified that the battalion fire chief ordered firefighter scales to the PFC. The officer also testified that firefighter scales should have been placed on administrative leave. Both the battalion fire chief and Engine 7 officer testified that firefighter scales has never had a work performance issue. They both testified that scales got along well with others. They also testified that firefighter scales was a good worker when he came to work. The officer also testified that in the 2 years that I've been back, he's only worked with me about 10 times. The exact opposite of the history what his special reports read. The battalion fire chief at the police and fire clinic denied that he spoke with firefighter scales on any occasion. This is with phone records and journal entries provided. Engine 7's officer testified that firefighter scales placed himself on AWOL and that the battalion fire chief would deny EAL request. He also testified that he didn't feel safe going to the police and fire clinic in fear of retaliation. On the morning of October 12, 2014, at the conclusion of my 436-hour suspension, I learned that I was terminated. After providing evidence that I had not intentionally abandoned my post, the trial board panel decided against me. This decision came after the battalion fire chief lied on record. The trial board panel found enough reason to end my 12 years of service. Although I had lost the battle, all hope wasn't lost. I gathered copies of medical records, emails, phone records, and other papers to assist with my appeal. I had a to-do list given by the fire department. I was to return my gear, EMT and CPR cards, get signatures from human resources and other departments. I had 30 calendar days to appeal the decision. I filed an appeal a day late because I believed that the notice read 30 business days. I then learned I had to appeal that decision. I appealed the decision, but the motion was denied. I had let certain victories slip through my fingers.